Many of the most mysterious missing person cases go on to become cold cases. But every year, hundreds of thousands of people have to report their loved one missing after they disappear without a trace. Hopefully, some of the creepiest cases of 2021 that are still unsolved don't go on to become the mysterious cold cases of the future. Number 5. Family and friends of Nakaila Williams have spent more than a month asking what's happened to their missing loved one. According to police, there's no sign of foul play in the unsolved case. But Nakaila's family worry something terrible may have happened to her, and the person responsible is now covering their tracks. Nakaila was 24 years old when she left her home in Indianapolis on November 9th. She was the oldest of 4 sisters and had a brother. According to her family, she was very kind and caring, and preparing to look after her mother after an operation that was scheduled a few weeks after she disappeared. But on November 9th, Nakaila left the house and climbed into a gray pickup truck. She hasn't been seen since. The owner of the truck is believed to be a man named Beston Hoyle. Not much is known about how Nakaila knew Hoyle, but her family said that she spent a lot of time in a neighborhood where Hoyle used to live, about an hour's walk from her mother's home. Nakaila's phone was turned off not long after she got into the vehicle. When her family couldn't get in contact with her, she was reported missing. Even though she was reported missing shortly after she vanished, it wasn't until 3 weeks later that police issued an appeal for information. As Nakaila is an adult, she has a right to disappear, and as police could find no signs of foul play, there seemed to be a reluctance to investigate it first. Even though her family insists that this was completely out of character for her, she didn't meet the criteria of a vulnerable person, and the investigation was left to Kyla's friends and family. The initial search centered on the neighborhood where she had spent time with Hoyle. The house itself was empty, but the attitude of the neighbors only made Nakaila's family fear more. They were allegedly reluctant to get involved, but told her family they needed to look into Hoyle, and that he used multiple names. A search of the house was conducted, and at one point, one of the search party members took a hammer to the wall, but no sign of Nakaila or what could have happened to her turned up. After the police got involved, they traced Hoyle to Flint, Michigan, and have been working with police officers there. It's important to note that there's no evidence that Nakaila was taken against her will. Even though her family say that she wouldn't do something like this, it's entirely possible she wanted to start a new life somewhere else. If that is the case, Nakaila herself is asked to contact authorities and assure them that she's okay. Nakaila is described as a black woman with red shoulder-length hair and brown eyes. She's 150 pounds and 5'5". A reward is available for information that could solve this mysterious disappearance. Number 4. Jeremiah Rivers disappeared in what police call suspicious circumstances in October of 2021. Jeremiah was an Aussie rules football player and spent the Australian winter of 2021 playing in the Central Murray Football League in Victoria and New South Wales. After the end of the season, he and a group of friends were traveling back to Darwin in the Northern Territory. It was October 18th when Jeremiah and the group arrived at a camp near Whippo Creek. This was a campground in an extremely isolated area of southwest Queensland. According to those that were with him, Jeremiah decided to go for a walk into the outback. It was the last time any of them saw him. The group waited until the following evening before reporting Jeremiah missing. According to friends and family, Jeremiah was an experienced bushman, but surviving in the arid area where he vanished wouldn't have been easy for him. It was extremely hot and dry at the time, and there were few watering holes that Jeremiah could have used to survive. He also didn't have any food with him, and he left all his possessions either at the campsite or in the car the group were using. A land and air search of the area where Jeremiah disappeared followed. Authorities claimed that if he was hurt or unable to move, the search teams would have found him. But no trace of Jeremiah was found. The initial search was called off after less than a week. It resumed 5 days later after police received new information and turned their focus to Wilson River. But still, nothing was discovered, and the police search ended on October 31st. Now police believe something more sinister may have happened. One possibility is that he was picked up by a group of criminals. The day before Jeremiah went missing, a car was stolen from the Sunshine Coast. Over the next 2 days, the thieves stole fuel from 2 gas stations, including one not far from where Jeremiah went missing. There's no evidence connecting the 2 incidents, but police say it remains a line of inquiry. There's also some questions surrounding the people who had been traveling with Jeremiah. There were a number of differences in their stories, and there was some delay to the friends coming forward. The group had illegally come into the state, breaking lockdown laws. It's possible this had made them reluctant to come forward to report Jeremiah missing, rather than their delay having anything to do with the disappearance. Jeremiah remains missing. He is described as an indigenous man, 185 centimeters tall, with a slim build and a tattoo of a cross under his right arm. Number 3. It was only after Renell Rose Bennett disappeared that her family realized just how dangerous the man she had been seeing for the past month was. Renell was a 33-year-old mother of 2 who disappeared in June of 2020. Her children lived with Renell's mother, Rose Yazzie, but Renell called them to chat every day. On the 15th of June, Rose went to her daughter's home in Hogback, New Mexico, to talk about Renell's daughter's upcoming birthday. They were going to have a celebration at Rose's house, and they decided to meet to decorate before the celebration. Nothing seemed out of the ordinary at the time. Renell's new boyfriend, Kendall Johnson, was home but stayed in the back bedroom. They'd only been dating for about a month, and apparently he didn't want to be part of the party planning. Rose hadn't met Johnson or KJ as she knew him, but her daughter had told her about him. Renell hadn't told Rose about the life of crime Johnson was involved in. When it was time for Rose to return home, Renell hugged her mother. Rose would later say it was a strange hug, not like her daughter. She was tearful. Renell didn't turn up to her daughter's birthday celebration. Neither Rose nor Renell's children were able to get in touch with her. After a few days of silence from Renell, Rose contacted authorities and reported her daughter missing. It was then that she found out about Johnson. He was wanted for a series of crimes, ranging from home invasions to car robberies. After a long police chase, Johnson and the rest of his gang were apprehended at the end of July, but there was no sign of Renell. Johnson said he had last seen Renell a few days after she was reported missing, and gave police a general location where she was last seen, but no sign of her was ever found. Police aren't sure if Renell had anything to do with the robberies, but can't rule anything out. Her family fears something might have happened to her. Renell is a Native American woman, 5 foot 2 inches tall, and 125 pounds. She has Treston tattooed on her right inner forearm, and B tattooed behind her left ear. Number 2. Ellie Mae Begay was a beloved member of the Navajo Nation community where she lived. She was a 52-year-old master rug weaver, creating beautiful works of art in the form of rugs that were sold all over the world. She lived alone in a small community in Sweetwater, Arizona. It was an isolated community, but she had a few neighbors that lived close by. She had a son, but he lived all the way in Denver and hadn't been able to visit his mother since before the pandemic hit. When the pandemic hit, Ellie Mae was extremely cautious. She rarely went out and didn't invite anyone to her home. She and her son were in the process of arranging a visit from him and his children, but other than that, the only visitors she had were the people who installed solar panels on the roof of her house 6 months before she vanished. Ellie Mae was last seen at her home in the early hours of June 15th. According to some sources, she was seen by a neighbor getting into her truck and driving away. She may have had someone with her. When Ellie Mae and her truck were still missing the following morning, the community immediately knew something was wrong. This was someone that had been taking extreme precautions. She wouldn't have just vanished in the middle of the night. The police were contacted before 11 a.m. and the search began. There are lots of details in this case that remain unclear. What exactly, if anything, they found in their searches has not been made public, but they did confirm there was no signs of a struggle. However, the case was later handed over to the FBI. Foul play was believed to be involved, and investigators believed it was possible she was no longer alive. The only named person of interest in the case was a man named Preston Tolf. The evening before Ellie Mae disappeared, police were called to a neighbor's home due to a disturbance involving Tolf. Tolf wasn't known to Ellie Mae and didn't live in the area, but the possibility that he might have seen something made him a person of interest. Ellie Mae's family believed that whoever took her was someone who knew her. Because the area was so rural, if someone was involved in the disappearance, they either had to live in the community or someone from the community had brought them there. There was no out-of-place vehicle in Sweetwater, and they had apparently left in Ellie Mae's truck, which still hasn't been found. Ellie Mae is described as 5 foot tall, weighing 100 pounds. She usually wore glasses. The vehicle she went missing with was a silver F-150 with tinted windows and the license plate number AFE 7101. Number 1. On the face of it, the disappearance of Rebecca Barzotti doesn't seem to be all that mysterious. Law enforcement seem to agree. Her vehicle was found in a rest area at mile marker 72, off Interstate 90 in Alberton, Montana. A number of her belongings were found scattered on the bank of a nearby river. Police quickly ruled the case as accidental drowning, especially when the body of her dog, Cerberus, was found 10 miles downstream. But reading into the case, something much more mysterious may have happened. Rebecca was 33 years old when she disappeared. She had moved from her hometown in Virginia to Missoula, Montana in 2007. There, she met David Barzotti, and they married in 2015. But the marriage was far from perfect. According to her family, Barzotti was a violent man, and Rebecca actually took out a restraining order against him. Rebecca's mother would often get calls from her in the middle of the night, saying he had kicked her out of the house. In 2021, they decided to separate for good, and Rebecca moved out. On July 20th, Rebecca met with one of her estranged husband's caregivers at a gas station. Her husband was a vet, something her family disputes, and had an injury which meant that he needed carers. The caregiver gave Rebecca some of the belongings that Rebecca had left at the house, and they went their separate ways. This was 2:15 p.m. The last ping on Rebecca's phone was just an hour later. A passerby found some of Rebecca's belongings on the bank of the Clark Fork River. The police officer in charge of the case said the water was too dangerous, and he would never go in. But the river was actually a popular hangout spot for locals in the summer, with many cooling off in the water. What exactly was found isn't clear, and the family have been told different things by different people. But it included her phone, her glasses, and the control for her dog's electric collar. The scene wasn't secured by law enforcement. Her belongings were collected but not fingerprinted. The same thing happened with her car. A video on the phone revealed Rebecca had been training Cerberus at the side of the river. Police assumed that she fell in the water, or that Cerberus had, and that she had jumped in after him. But nobody saw Rebecca enter the water, and people have questioned why she would take off her glasses to do that. Very few land searches have taken place, with police entirely focusing on the river, though it doesn't seem that that was completely exhaustive, especially in the early stages of the investigation. Cerberus was found 10 miles downstream, about a week after he and Rebecca vanished. According to a vet, The remains were too badly decomposed to determine what had happened to him, and his remains were cremated before a second opinion could be obtained. The dog was only found after Rebecca's mother asked police to search off of mile marker 69, based only on mother's intuition. Rebecca's family suspect foul play. According to them, her estranged husband had threatened to drown Rebecca and Cerberus in the weeks before she vanished. Along with the court orders against him, they believed he was more than capable of following through on the acts. The family also point out that the vet was a good friend of the estranged husband. The husband allegedly had an alibi, which seems to have been one of the caregivers. The caregiver has defended him on social media, denying any kind of domestic violence took place. Due to this alibi, he has never been named as a person of interest. Rebecca's family have also received anonymous threats on their lives and property since they started pushing law enforcement for a more thorough investigation. Rebecca still hasn't been found. Until then, and until an autopsy takes place, if she has in fact passed away, her family are adamant that this is an unsolved mystery that needs to be investigated. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But I've been Ty Knotts, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.